Well, welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Ilse Hampton. I'm the CEO of Meaningful Aging Australia, and it's just fantastic to be with you today and Dr. Cherie Hugo to talk about meaning and food. It's the second time this month that we're circling around this really important topic, and we know it's important just based on the sheer numbers of people who've been registering and following up with the recording afterwards. As we begin, let's acknowledge the traditional owners, the various lands where we are. For me here in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I invite you to hold in mind, or you might like to put in the chat the name of the traditional owners of the land where you are. As we do that, let's pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. And at Meaningful Aging Australia, we also like to really honour the spiritual strength of Australia's First Peoples. So meaning and food, really, I think the two ideas cannot be separated. When we think about our relationship to food is literally as old as we are. Whatever your years, you are constantly engaging with food and eating in so many different ways. So the patterns that are laid down at the deepest level of our being circle around food. Now, Dr. Cherie Hugo is someone who's very passionate in this area, has been working for a number of years to really help aged care services transform things to do with food, and not only at the psychosocial spiritual end, but also the biomedical end and everything in between. So without further ado, I'm delighted to invite Cherie to share with us and give us some stimulating ideas and maybe give us a kick up the arse as well, Cherie.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Ilse, and I hope you all can excuse me for being in a car. We're on a long road trip up to an aged care home in Biloela, actually. But it's wonderful to join in and be part of this very important conversation. So I'm just going to start. I'll share screen, and we'll go from there. So introduction. So I haven't met. I'm the founder of the Lantern Project, which is Australia's only community of practice focused around improving the quality of life of older Australians through the joy of good food. So we established the Lantern Project in 2013 out of Bond University on the Gold Coast, and lead action-based research, advocacy, collaboration and consultancy in this space. So it's wonderful to join Ilse and the Meaningful Aging Australia team to share a little bit around the Lantern Project and our journey that really has been to unpack and measure the meaning of food as we age. So after a couple of decades kind of focusing on this space, what we know, really running education and process in this space is, hang on, my slides are jumping ahead. What we know is food can really make or break a day. So it's so much more than just nutrients on a plate. So as a dietitian by background, as much as that's important, what we know is there are so many other touch points that impact if someone's going to enjoy that meal, and all of those kind of ingredients, as we say, that really make up a great meal experience. So in terms of the care setting, as much as we do work across community and aged care, what we do know in terms of residential aged care is that aged care food has been within the top 3 complaints for quite a number of years. We also know that when it comes to the outcome of whether someone is enjoying a meal and actually being nourished by that meal, we're currently sitting around 50% of our aged care residents in the resi aged care setting as being malnourished. So this kind of impacts then in other ways as to quality of life, but it just marks an area that we know that there's still room for improvement, and certainly those figures we're demonstrating can be shifted in a positive direction. We also know, and it's no news to all who join, with the Royal Commission, which the final report earlier this year, we found, and certainly it's not a surprise, that food was highlighted as one of the top 4 concerns for immediate attention. When we look at the other 4 topics, we know that each of those topics, so dementia care, restrictive practices and palliative care, also link back to food and nutrition. So we know that 1/4 of the submissions to the Royal Commission related to food and nutrition, which is of interest. So it shows sort of that meaning that people really place on the importance of food and nutrition when it comes to caring for our older family members and friends. And so we know that from all of that input, that really when it comes to community, we know that food is the barometer that the community use to judge the quality of an aged care service. So that's important, I guess, as for aged care providers to understand that when we get the food right, many things fall into place, but when we get the food wrong, that can actually be quite, lead to the complaints that we have seen certainly surface when it comes to the Royal Commission's coverage of aged care. So I think, I've pointed already to a few of the key functions when it comes to sort of the meaning of food and sort of what functions of food in my world with certainly the Lantern Project. But it's also important to just reflect on really other sort of the general meaning of what food, means as we age. So, Ilse, I recall you kindly joined in to our Lantern conference last November and shared some wonderful aspects from your perspective around food and meaning. So I've mentioned some of those touch points. As a dietitian, I can't ignore. So nutrition is one of those things, and certainly sustenance. The point of food, sustaining and leading and contributing to sort of optimal health outcomes. We know that it obviously has health benefits and drivers in terms of some people, that's why they eat. They eat to be healthy. From a mental health point of view, we know that, food and it impacts mood directly. So the sort of that connection between food and mood and how we're all feeling. We've all experienced that obviously through the multiple lockdowns that have been the last year and a half. There's the connection with gut health and and how that impacts a person, and heart health, so overall health. So food's got also the meaning around connection, and certainly that's one of the biggest points that come through our monthly discussions at the Lantern Project. The importance of sort of how food connects us and unites us when we come together and eat. We know that we eat more when we're in company, and we eat more again if we're in good company. We know that food is a way that people sometimes express love. So in the aged care sector, where we've got residents who may be in lockdown and family members wanting to bring in food that is a way of them expressing love. So food also is a way of, I guess, acknowledging cultural beliefs and identity, as Ilse mentioned earlier. So we know that food diets, so it may be kosher or halal diets, it may be we have beliefs, ethical beliefs around animal cruelty, and we may be vegan with that. So it's an identity. It's a way that we certainly express that identity through what we choose to eat. Food is also kind of has the component around agency and control. So we see that quite often when someone refuses to eat for one reason or another. They might go on a hunger strike around, not so much in aged care, but that sort of ability for it to be something that we innately can largely control when other things in life may be out of our control. It's a celebration space. So, and for many of us, food sort of celebrations will always revolve around a meal time, and often quite a specific food that sort of links with an occasion, and that is something that becomes quite a tradition. It links memories, and particularly, I mean, it's great for all of us, eating a food that, you know, brings back a childhood memory. It's great for residents living with dementia in triggering and really sparking, bringing back and triggering memory, and also a way of communicating. So many different connections between food and meaning. So we know that there are all of these different touch points, and part of our work over the last 8 years has been knowing that there are all of these different ways that food and meaning can really connect. How do we actually measure and identify and make sense of that when we're in the aged care setting? So we know food's a complex space. One of the things that has really come out of the conversations over the last few years has been around developing a bit of a framework, which we call the Lantern approach. It's basically 7 principles, all of the key points that are really non-negotiable for that optimal experience, that food experience for the residents that we serve. So one of those, the Lantern approach is really a set of evidence-based guidelines that we've been using, and certainly as part of the journey over the last few years we've threaded those guidelines into the aged care quality standards in our consulting work to ensure that they're represented, not as strongly as we would like the end outcome, but they're represented there in the framework that homes are accredited by. We have also developed a couple of tools that are very tangible ways of all of the learnings of our monthly collaboration meetings and research to help, again, identify and explore meaning and make sense of that meaning through our tools. So one of those tools is the Explore app. So we know that when humans innately share experiences, they share knowledge and experiences best through storytelling. And what certainly in the residential aged care sector setting, we know that if a resident is faced with a survey that, it might be a Likert scale of, on a scale of 0 to 10, and the answers are quite predictable, quite often we will find that those surveys will be gifted or gamed in terms of, the predictable positive answer will often be chosen, even if it's not exactly what the resident may mean. So the Explore app is all around moving away from that, sort of choosing and gaming kind of a survey response around food, to allowing people to just share a memorable moment. So when we ask residents to share a memorable moment around food, the number of experiences and the breadth of experience is, astounding. It's not really always honing in on a meal experience that's in a dining room. When we keep that question open and capture it through the Explore app, we start beginning to understand what people value most around the food and mealtime experience. And certainly over COVID, we explored that in further depth, but definitely with our travels from day to day with Lantern now, we capture experiences and then ask residents to further define their experience through some simple questions. The beauty of that is it allows residents to clearly identify what foods mean to them, what they value most, and really all of these insights, when we're at an organisation in particular, allow us to guide what is most important and what are the highest priorities for change within that organisation. So it gives voice back to the aged care recipients to be able to share what they value most, and that guides where the changes are made. So so it's sort of, I guess, connecting and measuring this topic that we're talking around, the complexity of meaning, in a tangible way that then homes can guide changes to be aligned with their resident population. So the other tool, which I'll briefly share, is Epicure, which we certainly have been out and about over the last couple of years with some leading aged care organisations demonstrating. So Epicure is a diagnostic tool that provides laser sharp evidence and solutions that improve clinical outcomes and quality of life for residents, whilst providing assurance, efficiencies, and also good recognition for providers that are really willing to take a lead when it comes to food. So Epicure is an ongoing assessment, so it incorporates the Explorer, where twice a year our Epicure team will go into a home and speak with as many residents as possible and family members and staff to capture those memorable mealtime experiences that have recently occurred. In addition to eating lots of meals, I can vouch the last couple of months, I swear I've gained about 5 kilos across one organisation, 43 dining areas, 2 meals at least as a minimum in each, a lot of food. But in doing that is experiencing, so really sitting with residents, experiencing that mealtime experience with them and capturing kind of that, that environment and looking for opportunities to change and further improve. So within Epicure and Explore, which are both based on the evidence-based principles of the Lantern approach, we're helping to kind of, I guess, make sense of the meaning that individuals, we all have different meanings, but it helps to make sense of what's the most value for each resident population. Every resident's so unique, but every home is so unique. There's not one home that ever is the same, and therefore the priorities that come out of the Epicure assessment and our Explore app exploration, where we kind of go in and sense make the stories that are shared, allow us to provide insights for homes to really target that mealtime experience to meet the needs of our residents. And in doing so, if we're meeting the needs of residents and residents end up eating more and are better nourished, most of the that we hear about regularly, and we certainly as aged care providers are feeling the stretch, many of those complications take care of themselves when we get the food right. So really, Epicure, what we say, the devil's in the details. That's where we find really the truth and solutions that result in a measurable impact around food and that mealtime experience for our elderly residents. So that's in a nutshell. I'm not sure if I'm going to good time. I don't have my usual wall clock here in the car. I'm getting a thumbs up. So more than willing to answer any questions or share more. But
sure. Thanks very much, Cherie.
Thank you.
We'll turn off the recording now.